if I'm doing the same thing every day, where's the opportunity to learn something different or to grow? To where I can even come up with new material from experiences. Like if I'm, experiencing the same exact thing for about 12 hours in a day, and I have 2 to 3 hours to myself, and usually those 2 to 3 hours is watching Chopped and eating dinner and then going to bed. You can only write so many jokes about the Food Network,
You're listening to Find the Good News, Episode 83, The Open Mic, featuring Chase Bonin of the Lake Charles comedy scene. Find the Good News is produced by Parker Brand Creative Services, a branding agency that thinks sideways, pushes forward, and gets your brand up. See what else we do at parkerbrandup.com. I talk a lot about love and compassion on this show. I truly believe they're medicine and two of the greatest gifts that can be given and received. But there's another very human gift that brings great healing, and I know I don't talk about it enough, and that gift is laughter. When I look back on my life, laughter has often been a huge component to my well-being, and a good belly laugh has always been a sign that reconciliation may have occurred and deep grief is settling. Or maybe a cosmic awareness of the silliness and beauty of life has hit me square in the forehead. The truth is, I want to get the great joke and laugh through my tears. And these beings that have the ability to pull the chuckles out of me when I need it most are acting as great healers. I had to laugh at myself yet again when Chase Bonin, local comedian and organizer of the Lake Charles comedy scene, came in for a visit on Find the Good News. I'm guilty of being one of those people, the ones that say, I wish we had this or that in our area. Well, the joke was on me. I truly didn't know we had an active and growing stand-up comedy scene in Southwest Louisiana, and visiting with Chase reminded me yet again that I don't always know what I think I know. Chase loves comedy and is a student of stand-up, and he's using that love and high interest to bring local and regional talent to our area. I enjoyed hearing about his road to stand-up. He's honest, funny, and somewhere between those things, I found a really authentic bit of wisdom as well, and that's really good news. I invite you to listen to my conversation with Chase Bonin, a really funny guy with an open mic if you think you might be funny too. The world may still be trying to figure out how to kickstart all the old systems, but for the time being, just lay those worries down. Chase Bonin has some chuckles to share. So take a drive, a walk, put in some earbuds, then dust off your smile. Prepare to laugh and have a genuine good time. Then press play on a little good news.
Wake up, it's morning. You're dreaming up a story. I can hear the way it's going, 'cause you're laughing in your sleep on the path to your deliverance, and a holy wall of light pouring through your window.
Old news, bad news, fake news. Sometimes you just want to shut it all down and get no news at all. With Find the Good News, I aim to change that by focusing on good people doing good work. I visit with artists, educators, civic and spiritual leaders, musicians, business owners, students, volunteers, and everyday citizens who are using their creativity, resources, and talents to bring hope and happiness to their corner of the world. In each episode, I dig into the hearts and minds of my extraordinary guests. We have street-level conversations about relatable things going on in their lives. Discover the critical life experiences that shape them, the perspectives that drive them, and the fundamental beliefs that are anchoring them to a path of goodness. There's a lot of news in the world. My name is Oran Parker, and I'm going to find the good.
And I love you just as well.
Well, look, we're rolling. So we can just jump right into it. We were actually kind of already talking about it.
Yeah, obviously. One thing, though, I was going to ask you, how old are you?
45.
45. Okay, because I was trying to figure out, most people from Sulphur know each other.
Yeah.
So I'm 36.
36, okay. So we got almost a decade between us. Yeah, you might know my youngest sister, Rebecca. Maybe. I mean, y'all are in the same age bracket.
Really?
Did you graduate from Sulphur High?
Well, no. I didn't graduate. I quit when I was like 16 and got my GED. So.
F this place.
Yeah. It was me and Sulphur High didn't get along very well.
Yeah.
So it was like I don't know. I wasn't even really that bad of a kid, I guess. But it was more of just lazy.
That's honest.
Yeah. On my part. And I mean, I guess like I could be kind of, I don't know of a good word to describe. I could be a pain in the ass.
You can just be a real pain in the butt.
Yeah. So,
dude, that's honest right out the gate. That's actually what makes this show better is when people get honest, and you're just being like really honest.
Yeah, I will talk a lot about stuff.
Hey, man, this should be fun. Sometimes this show, I never wanted it to be about one thing.
Yeah.
Because what's good. There's this line in the Tao Te Ching that's come up a few times, but when I read it the first time, it really hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, I was in my 20s because, especially when it comes to morality, and the line goes like this: it says, "What is a good man but a bad man's teacher, and what is a bad man but a good man's job?" And I just kind of paused right there when I read that, and to some people they'd be like, "Oh, fortune cookie wisdom," but it really hit me, and it stripped away so much at such a young age of like, why? It really just, for me, it was like, why do we do what we do? Why do we choose one thing to be good and another bad? So it's all like this whole Obi-Wan Kenobi, truth from your own perspective kind of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so like, I guess my reason for saying that is, what one's path, your path, you chose, you said you're a pain in the ass and you decided to quit school. And maybe that was good for you. Maybe that is you becoming you was part of that. And that might be uncomfortable for some people. Not that I'm going to sit here and advocate to my kid, hey, quit school. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't know.
Actually, when I did it, because my brother, he did it, we both did it about the same age.
Really?
And it's, I don't know if it's a good thing to say that we had support from our parents, mostly, like my mom, but she could see the trouble we're having. Just like, cause the grades weren't really bad, but they weren't always there because we weren't always there. Or like if I would sleep a lot in class. I wasn't really like acting up or anything like that. But then also, I guess at the same time, if I would get sent to the office or something like that, I would like not really problem with the authority, but I just like, what are you telling me what to do for? Like,
if I was to be honest, and I think most people would probably, who really know me, know this about me, that I have a problem with that. And I don't know if it's necessarily a problem per se, but I'm definitely believe in self-governance. I believe a human being can and should have the right to govern themselves as long as they do not hurt other human beings and don't take more than their share. And if they do take more than their share, the other people have a full right to come stomp their butt in the ground and get them in line on their own. Okay, I've always kind of carried that around in me as that way. So the idea of authority, I struggle with it as the legalism of a lot of things. It's like this is all a bunch of paperwork. So it's kind of odd.
Yeah, but I guess like in school it was more of a lack of respect, maybe.
Here I'm trying to take you to this other level. And you're like, yeah, that's cool, man, but like it's really more just a lack of respect.
I completely understand what you're talking about, though. But I don't know. I'm going off of my personal experience.
No, I get it, man. Let's hear it.
And it's a growing thing still to this day.
Yeah, sure.
And there is way more respect for authority in general, but that's because I don't want to go to jail or get hurt by other people.
Sure. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes I'm like, take me to jail, but on the other hand, I'm like, don't kill me, please.
Yeah.
I mean, now this is going to be sad, but I'm really telling the truth here. But I keep a pair of those safety yellow gloves that you see in construction sites. I keep a pair in my truck, and it hasn't happened yet, but I keep them so when I get pulled over, I'm going to put them on my hands because I have this fear because I watch these videos, man, and people are like, the other day I watched one and this kid, both his arms were out the window, and the cop came up to the window and said, gun, gun. And the kid said, I'm recording. And then he changed his tune. And I was like, oh my gosh, man. Like he was really trying to bait this kid into getting shot. And I was like, man, it
can be crazy.
That's messed up out there. I mean, when you got granted in all different structures, you've got good and bad. But in those situations like that, I'm like, dude, that's somebody that just wants to kill somebody, man.
Yeah, that's pretty insane to think about.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have that little little fear in the back of my head. I'm like, man, could I get pulled over one day and like, you know, where are your hands? Show me your hands. I'm like, I'm just gonna keep this hot yellow gloves and like they're gonna be up in the air, you know. Even if I just get pulled over for a speeding ticket, man. It's like that. Real. It's the kind of world I think we're unfortunately coming to, you know.
Yeah, well, hopefully it gets better.
I hope so too. That's actually the other side of this show. Is I hope I actually do hope and believe people can be better, you know. But at the same time, I have this like undertone of I mean, I'll hope for the best, but there's also real stuff that's going on out there.
Yeah, for I don't know if this relates that well, but for a long time, years ago, I got real heavy into conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah. They can be fun.
That was my idea, was like, this is fun. And then for a couple months, I got too deep into it, and I was like, this isn't fun anymore.
No, it gets dark.
I'm just scared.
Yeah, you go down the hole too far into that world, and it's like, what in the world,
man?
So
I had to back up out of that for a while. So.
Oh, I think it's interesting, though. I mean, it's some of that stuff can be... If you take a step back and enjoy it as almost fiction, but it's like you said, it's like it gets too real.
Well, and some of the stuff ends up being real.
Yeah,
and that's where you're just like, okay, like, what do I do now?
Turns your world upside down, that kind of stuff. That whole snow globe gets broken. I get that, man. I've been down that path many times. Heck, I can't say I won't get there again, you know?
Exactly. And it's not that I'm not denying any of it, or I'm not confirming any of it.
Yeah.
It's just maybe I don't want to know for real. So I'll just focus on what I want to do with my life.
Blissful ignorance.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you can get all... Yeah, because honestly, man, you could get... If you worry about all the stuff that's out of your control, you'll just get gridlocked and just go, oh, my foot's in this bear trap of negativity and I'm just stuck right here. You know, and the world looks that way. The world, I've really come to believe that everything looks like whatever you're currently into. Because I mean, about a month ago, well, not even a month ago, less than 3 weeks ago, I read this book about cults.
Yeah.
And, you know, Steve's on incredible cult research. I mean, you know, going back through history. But I told a buddy of mine, and I've told my wife this too, I said, ever since I've read that book, everything looks like a cult. I mean, if I go to the grocery store and they're like, do you have your shopper's card? I'm like, cults. Cults.
I can see that,
But some of those psychological principles that are in these cult, the control of a cult does apply to like branding and all this other stuff. So it's hard to not go, how far do you go before it's cult?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm here wagging my finger. That's a cult.
That's funny.
All right, so we like jumped right in, which I love about the show. But before we dive way back off the cliff again, could we just kind of rappel down the hill of you for a second and you let everybody know who I'm talking to? And
Chase Bonin, currently the only successful, I guess, comedy show that's steady in Lake Charles is what I'm running. So that's what I do. I try to do comedy, try to bring laughs to the people. Currently trying to just get people to realize that there is comedy in Lake Charles. And there has been for a while. It's always just kind of like sporadic.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm trying to keep this show steady. It's every other week at the Social Club in Lake Charles, 1301 East McNeese.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that. The Social Club?
Yeah, it's just a bar.
Okay.
It's actually connected to the Man Cave Salon.
Oh, okay. So I gotcha. Right next to Crying Eagle.
Right next to Crying Eagle,
gotcha.
And it's still a newer thing. I think it's been around for a couple years, but we've been doing this show for going on a year now.
Okay.
This show, and they were nice enough to open the doors and kind of let me have full creative control on how the show runs. And I run it as an open mic with a headliner.
Okay.
So that means anybody can show up.
Wow.
And say, hey, I want to get on stage for 5 minutes and try to be funny. And I do that and it's actually worked because I'm trying to grow a scene.
Yeah, totally.
And the best way to do that is to have as many performers as you can.
Yeah.
And they can bring friends and family, and then people, the buzz catches on. So that's what I've been doing. We've been having a pretty good, solid lineup of regulars that come and sign up every week
local people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so glad to hear this. I didn't know this.
It's crazy because I didn't know that these people were out there either.
Okay.
And we were doing me and a couple other guys there was an open mic at Luna Live for like a couple years every Sunday, and that got moved to the Regal Beagle on like Wednesdays, and it was just like not really as much participation once it got there.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, let me just kind of do my own thing and see what I can bring to the table. Like, no offense to those guys that were still doing that.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's going to try something.
But and it just kind of started catching on.
Right on. Okay.
And I don't want to sound like I'm like the man or whatever, because I'm saying I have
working
the
at it,
only
though.
because I'm saying I have the only like successful show, but it's a currently successful show. If somebody else starts their own show, whether it be an open mic or just a showcase they do once a month or whatever, and it's successful, then great, because we need more.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like my idea here, is to get more funny in Lake Charles.
So, okay, I got a lot of questions. One, how many people are coming to these shows?
Sign up wise, our average list is about 10.
So you have 10 different people plus a headliner?
Plus a headliner, yeah. So
wow.
10 different people, and it fluctuates. Sometimes we've had up to like 16 people.
Really?
And because we'll get people all the way from like Lafayette or like Houston. There's a few people that'll come from Houston.
So they're making that circuit, okay.
And these are people that are, trying to grow themselves as well.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
And it's really cool. But as far as local that are there every time, we have a solid like at least 5 of those are like the same people every time.
From here, from our area. Wow. So I didn't even know. I mean, you're right. There have been comedians who have come out of Lake Charles, and I don't know what their success level's been, and I guess that depends on their gauge for success. But I know like Jen Kober, I mean, she's appeared in some things.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Which a lot of comedians do. That helps grow their career.
Yeah. She, honestly, she's the one who kind of kickstarted this for me.
Really?
Because it was in 2013 is when I first started trying to do stand-up. First time I ever went on stage, and it was just, hey, this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Hopped on an open mic that was like a music open mic. My buddy was hosting at Luna Live.
Yeah.
And he got me up there and just told whatever happened that day or whatever. And it was like, you got some laughs. It was kind of fun. So I was like, let me keep at this.
Yeah.
Well, then about 6 months into me doing that, like once a week, she came through, and she was here for the summer, and she set up a show at Jack Daniel's Bar and Grill called the Homegrown Comedy Show.
Yeah, I do. I recall that. I didn't go, but I recall it. Okay.
And so she pretty much, what is it called? She did like a audition for a bunch of like comedic actors, like improv and like stand-ups.
Yeah.
Everybody went up there. You did your thing for a couple minutes, and then you got a call back if you're going to be on this part of the show or not. And I was one of the ones that she selected, which was pretty cool.
Awesome, yeah.
And so it was interesting because we went right off the bat. It was like Monday, and like every Monday and Tuesday we would have like a rehearsal. So they had like half the show was improv, half the show was stand-up.
Okay.
And she made everybody do everything, which was cool. So I got a little bit of improv training as well, and she would help coach with the stand-up.
Okay.
And
what year is this?
That was 2013.
2013.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that was pretty cool, and that was kind of like kept me interested enough to keep at it myself. But then I joined another band for like a year, and I quit comedy. and then, but once that band kind of fizzled out, probably around 2015, I got back into it like pretty heavy, and I've been trying to build at it ever since. So.
Yeah, so you're built. So okay, I guess I didn't fully realize that. So you're building your own routine and reputation, but then you're also trying to build a community and a scene.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's obviously some selfishness to it,
but no, it makes sense though. I mean, if you're. Okay, let me ask you this. Do you travel to other cities and try and do live mics type stuff, open mic stuff?
I used to frequent Lafayette almost twice a week.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because Lafayette has a huge scene right now for like local stuff. They have a couple mics a week, but every weekend they have big like headliner shows. Like comedians that you've seen on TV and stuff like
really?
that. Oh, really?
I didn't even realize that.
Lafayette has a huge scene right now for comedy. And I have a lot of friends that I met from doing these open mics over there that have helped me a lot, kind of like build. Excuse me.
No, man. Take a drink, man. Got some water. Take a drink. So I didn't realize. I almost went to Lafayette. Another story. Just don't let me start. I won't stop on that. So okay, yeah. So Lafayette's scene is growing.
So I'll do Lafayette.
Has grown.
Beaumont used to have a really good spot. So I've done New Orleans and Houston and stuff like that before, just kind of here. And anytime like we take a vacation or something somewhere, I'll find the scene there and I'll do a show. So like my wife and I did our honeymoon in Key West.
Yeah.
And I was on like 2 shows that week that we were there, which thank you, Lacey, for loving me so much to let me do that on our honeymoon. But it was just a cool thing.
Well, it's going to be part of your life if that's what your goal is.
Yeah, same thing. We're about to take a family vacation to Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Okay.
And Savannah's like 45 minutes away, so I'm already looking for spots over there.
Nice.
So.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I guess, what we were trying to do with this show is when we travel is try to hook up with people wherever we're going and go, hey, can we walk? Because I have a mobile kit.
Yeah.
You know, and go, hey, while we're in town, can we do a little,
yeah,
you know, see what's going on?
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the similar aspiration because, I mean, you can do the thing anywhere.
Exactly.
And I'm happy, I know it. I'm helpless.
Sorry for interrupting the conversation, but I have something I need to tell you about. You may or may not know this, but this podcast is produced in the city of Sulphur, Louisiana, one of the sister cities that make up Southwest Louisiana. All of my childhood memories are wrapped up in the city of Sulphur. It's my home, and it's been a good home for most of my life. There is a growing diversity of unique businesses, services, and events in Sulphur, each with a rich and colorful story to tell about their particular place in this little jewel on the west side of the Calcasieu River. My mission is to promote good news, to put a positive signal out in the world. That's why my team at Parker Brand Creative Services has created the new brand, Sulphur Today. Here's how it works. Post your Sulphur event, service, photos, videos, or information using the hashtag #SulphurToday. That's it. My team and I will scan and curate those posts through the social media platforms we've put in place. Before you make your post, just type hashtag. That's a £sign for the folks that don't know what a hashtag is. And the words Sulphur Today with no space. My team at Parker Brand is monitoring this tag right now, and they're ready to create positive digital curb appeal for our city by sharing all the very best Sulphur has to offer through the Sulphur Today social media pages. As the Sulphur Today project grows, we will be scheduling interviews and video sessions with businesses, events, and services so they can tell their story of Sulphur Today in a series of ongoing micro-documentaries. Look for the eye-catching Sulphur Today sign when you're out and about. And be ready, we may be stopping by to visit you for a photo op. And don't forget to stop by the Parker Brand Creative Services studio in Sulphur to grab a Sulphur Today decal for your vehicle or business. We want people visiting our area to know that they can find all the wonderful things we have to offer with ease and be a part of our history by utilizing the Sulphur Today pages or by searching the Sulphur Today hashtag. Do you want to help us tell the story of Sulphur Today? Here's what I need you to do right now. Visit and like the Facebook page at facebook.com/Sulphur Today. And be sure to share positive Sulphur information and post often using the hashtag Sulphur Today. Now, back to Find the Good News.
I love you just as well.
So this is interesting because I love watching those shows that show a comedian like starting out and, you know, and like how they go through all the ups and downs. And it seems like there's this constant thread. The one is just the heartbreak, man, like getting up there and bombing.
Yeah.
And they all talk about like you have to bomb over and over to find like what works. Is that what you've experienced too?
Oh, yeah.
Have you bombed?
I still bomb.
You still bomb?
It's because especially at like an open mic, but that's the idea is you're trying out new material.
Sure.
So you don't know what's going to land or not. Like you can sit all day and write out the perfect bit, like in perfect format.
Yeah.
You know, like it'd be set up, punch, and everything. And you'll get on stage and you'll try it and nobody cares about it.
Nobody laughs.
And it's crazy because you'll think that, this is going to
kill. It's just going to slay, yeah.
And then you get up there and you get no response. So it is.
How do you work your way out of that? I mean, I got to know because I have had similar experiences, not with comedy, but what do you do when you hit like, okay, this just bombed, it's crickets, I'm looking at these people? Do you have like a way out, like a self-deprecating way out, or what do you do?
I'm sure it's probably different for everybody. For me, I'll either abruptly address the situation, like the silence or something, and try to riff off of that real quick.
Okay.
And and it's not really like, there's some comedians that can like work their way out of that through the same bit. You know, the more professional people, I suppose. But I don't have that mindset just yet, so I'll just address it, and that usually kind of gets a quick laugh, and then I'll try to move on to something that I know will work. or I'll just keep bombing, whichever happens. Which has happened before. I did a show at Crying Eagle actually, probably about 2 or 3 months ago. And the place was packed, but nobody knew that there was going to be comedy.
Man, that's okay. That's
yeah.
a tricky thing, huh?
So I did like an 8-minute set of like not even necessarily silence, but just confused looks, like people trying to like eat and drink, and like they're there with like their families and stuff.
Yeah, and here's comedy.
Yeah, and I'm like over here telling these weird jokes, and they're just kind of like, "Why are you there?"
Oh yeah, that's interesting, man. Because Michelle and I like comedy, and we haven't been to a ton of shows, but we've been to some. And I have noticed that we went to one in Beaumont and it was kind of like that. You could tell, like, almost the person before the headliner, there was just sort of this half attention. There was the drinking and socializing time, and it really, really interrupted the whole vibe. We went for the comedy, but you could tell that there was a huge difference between the amount of attention. During that time.
People don't like to be surprised with comedy. It's a very specific thing. You gotta like you have to be there to know that you're going to be watching. You know? Because we'll get people that'll go to the open mic at the social club every once in a while they don't realize it's going to be a comedy show. Like now we've been doing it long enough to where every week we got a pretty steady crowd, probably about 25, 30 people.
Oh, really? Wow,
that actually come to watch.
When is it? When is it? The same time every week?
It's every other Thursday. So our next one's going to be on the... Hang on, I got it here on my phone.
Okay, every other Thursday.
Yeah, we just did one last week, so it'll be next Thursday.
Okay.
Let me get the exact
I got to go
date.
check it out, man.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Let me get this exact date, though, because I'm not very good with dates.
No, that's okay. Every other Thursday. We can look at it right here. So every other Thursday, we put it on the 19th.
Yeah, March 19th. And the headliner we got for that one is going to be Drew Holloway from Houston.
Okay. Now, I'm not familiar with him, but he's probably known in those circles.
He's local Houston. He started about 4 years ago, and he's one of the ones that just started coming out to my show.
Oh, really?
Almost every
to
month.
Watch you.
Well, just to kind of sign up and do it.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So that was like, to me, that was cool because all the way, that's like 2.5 hours away, and he's making his way out here to Lake Charles just to kind of like try something different.
Yeah.
Because Houston's comedy scene is massive.
Yeah,
like
I've been to shows over there with buddies.
Yeah,
and it's...
there's stuff going on like every night of the week at all kinds of different places. So for him to actually branch out to here, so I watched him a few times, talked to him about it, and I was like, I think you can handle, doing an extended period of time down here. I think he's going to do pretty well. So, but next month we actually have this shirt right here. This is actually a comedian shirt. It says Bloodmouth.
Yeah,
that's a
local. It's like a union.
It's supposed to be kind of. I think he describes it as like a gang.
I got you.
But it's he's a comedian from I think Indiana.
Okay.
Matt Eleno Martin. But he's
coming.
Yeah, he came down a couple months ago, and then I bought this shirt from him. We did the show. It was fun, and then he hit me up again. He's coming back through April. That would be April 2nd. Yep, he's going to be at the social club doing about an hour's worth of time.
Very nice.
And he's like a professional comedian. He's been doing the festival circuit like for the past few years now. He has a couple albums out, and he's like all over like Sirius XM and stuff like that.
So what's the ticket charge typically to get into the cover?
No, it's free.
Oh, it's free?
Yeah, always
really?
Free. Yeah.
So what's the incentive for, I'm just curious, for a comedian to come to the scene like that?
As far as just
exposure?
Somebody new, it's
okay.
you're trying out. That's the one thing about comedy is like you're always practicing. So open mics, that's why I opened this up as an open mic for people trying out new stuff and people that want to come through and try new material.
Yeah.
That's why some people come from like Lafayette or Beaumont or Houston and stuff like that, because they've been doing the same material in their town and they want to try it on a different set of people. So just to practice, and as far as like the headliner stuff, I make sure they get taken care of.
Yeah,
so,
right on.
Yeah.
So you're organizing all this, which is a lot of work, man. I mean, I've organized things where you're bringing in speakers and stuff, and it's a lot of logistics. But so are you also performing at each show too?
I host them. So
okay.
Up top, I'll do a couple minutes, like try out a few new jokes or something, kind of set the pace. It always doesn't work out that well, but so, and then I'll try to set the lineup. Yeah, I'll try to set the lineup up to where I'll know, like, we'll start it off with somebody pretty strong, some of the newer guys, and then we'll try to put another strong performer, some newer people, and then we'll end it strong,
Okay.
So I'll try to have it to where it's like the whole show, like the last show that we did, like I did my 2 or 3 minutes up top, and like I said, it didn't go over very well. I was trying out some brand new stuff, and but the second the actual like show started, it was awesome.
Great.
And I had people even after the show, like people and there was more people there that I've never seen before watching.
Yeah.
Which was cool. And those people were coming up to me after the show, like thanking me for setting this up and all this kind of stuff. And that's awesome. But for me, I'm like, did you not see what I did up there? It was awful. But that's just me thinking about my set. But as far as the whole show, it was awesome.
What's interesting about all this is that I guess for me, I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I'll tell you, I'm going to jump off into a little story. Mm-hmm. This podcast was born from another comedian's podcast. I had never really listened to podcasts before, and I may have told some version of this, but I was up here one Saturday. I had a day's worth of work, and it was when Allison Mack, from Smallville, she was going through all that cult stuff, and that was in the news. Yeah. And I was a huge fan of the TV show Smallville. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I've been hearing about this. And I got online. Something put a bug in my head because I guess there was a news headline. I was like, I wonder what the other actors from the show think about this. And I just went online and looked it up. Well, I happened to see, it says Michael Rosenbaum talks about Allison Mack, and I go, oh, well, what's this? And I loved Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor, so I'm like, well, I'll check this out. Well, I press play. Well, it was Theo Vaughn's podcast.
Oh, okay.
And Michael Rosenbaum was on that. So it really wasn't all about Allison Mack. It was really just Michael Rosenbaum on Theo's podcast. So I'm sitting here working, and I wasn't watching it. And I kept laughing, man. I didn't really realize I was listening to a comedy podcast, so I was like, dude, these guys are cracking me up. And so I kind of looked up at the TV because it was on YouTube, and I'm seeing Theo Vaughn, and I go, where do I know this guy from? I couldn't put my finger on it. So I searched him up. I stopped working. I searched him up, and I was like, this is the guy from MTV Road Rules and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And he's cracking me up. And I was like, wow, I guess I haven't. It's been years, like a decade or more. And I'm like, he's completely reinvented himself. He's a comedian now. And I just got hooked on his podcast. Yeah. So I went down the podcast rabbit hole. Michael Rosenbaum, of course, he's got his own show. Mm-hmm. And I really liked between those two shows and some of the heart space they were getting into, but it was still funny.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we don't have this in our market. We don't have these types of raw kind of conversations where people are really getting in there. So let's do that. Yeah. But there's no comedy to my show. Nobody laughs when you listen to Find the Good News. But at the same time, there was something in the comedy mind that I felt like allowed space for you to talk about things that you just cannot talk about in other arenas. That world of comedy is a safe zone because it's got comedy. You can go, hey, I can push and knock down the fences because it's comedy.
Yeah.
But other people, I can't talk about that stuff because there's no comedy. Anyway, I tell you all that to mean after that, I just realized that comedians were using podcasts to build their audiences. Yeah. And man, there's some really great comedians I discovered that I had no idea about,
Yeah, that's I've been a fan of stand-up comedy forever. And the I guess podcast thing with comedy, I didn't really realize how comedians were using that until like the Joe Rogan podcast got huge.
Yeah.
And I'm not podcasts in general, and no offense, I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah, really.
It's just never been something that was that interesting to me. Now, I've found some since, like, in the past couple years that I've really liked, like, because my wife and my best friend, John, who actually, they both helped me with the show.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing it all alone.
Yeah, okay. But, got a crew, you got a team.
Yeah. But, like, they listen to podcasts constantly, so they're always like, check this out, check this out.
Okay.
So, but I have noticed, like Mark Maron.
Oh, dude, it's one of my favorite. I love that podcast.
He's always been one of my favorite comedians. I didn't even realize he did a podcast.
And he's like one of the OG podcasters. Yeah, for real.
So his podcast is one that I actually do like because he'll talk about things that I'm interested in.
Yeah, sure.
Like especially with other comedians and stuff like that. So, but it is pretty interesting, and I'll see a lot of like amateur comics that'll actually have more. They're more famous from their podcast than they are their comedy. But I guess I need to start a podcast.
Man, dude, I was wondering if you'd ever thought about it because, I mean, I listen to some comedians like weekly. Like Chris D'Elia's podcast is huge. Theo Vaughn. I will say that there's some that I've tried that I just don't get into, and I think there's something special going on with Chris's and Theo. They've really.
Theo Vaughn's an interesting guy. He's actually from New Orleans.
Yeah, he sure is. Yeah,
so, actually,
Covington over there.
Yeah, the last headliner that I had at the Social Club, Corey Mack, was the guy who introduced him on his last special that was on Netflix. So he filmed. Apparently, Theo Vaughn filmed it in New Orleans.
Yeah, he did.
Corey Mack opened the show, and you can see him.
Oh, okay.
Getting him out of there. I was like, hey, and I was watching it. Just one day I was seeing it, and I was like, that's Corey Mack. What the heck?
How cool is that,
huh?
huh?
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's neat seeing a comedian when it starts to tilt, because I think Theo was one of those comedians. I mean, he was like, okay, I'm a Louisiana guy. I'm working the circuit. I don't know. I think I'm funny. It's just like it completely blew up. Yeah. And now it's like, Theo Vaughn, man, he's huge. I think he's huge. I mean, I'm like, wow,
he's pretty big.
But he worked that podcast, man, to really build that audience.
Yeah. But and honestly, I have talked with my buddy John and my wife Lacey about us three starting a podcast.
Oh yeah, man.
We all three hang out pretty regularly, and we shoot ideas off of each other for my comedy, for comedy shows and stuff like that. So I
mean, dude, if somebody started a local comedy podcast and you had a format, like if you go, okay, this is what our show structure is, and we're going to do this, and I think it'd be great. I'd love to see somebody do. I'd love to see you do that.
It might come out one day. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
But,
well, that's cool.
It's not. But like I said before, podcasts were never really my thing. Like it's just starting to grow on me.
Yeah.
Past year or two. So, but I'd just have to figure out. I'd want to do something different or unique as far as a format goes. Yeah. I like what you have going on here because, you have on your past ones, you introduce as street level conversations just with people. Which is really cool because it is one of the only ones that I've listened to where I've actually been like, I do want to hear what's going on here.
Well, that's good to know.
So some of them you listen to and it's just like, no, they're not doing anything interesting. They're not talking about anything. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm the same way. This show's, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't want to say mimicking other shows. I mean, I listen to a lot of them. I'll tell you this, though, when I do hear something in another show and I go and I listen to it long enough and I go, I really like the way perhaps the host leads a conversation, and I'll notice that they're doing that over and over again. I won't maybe emulate it, but I'll take note. Mm-hmm. And so there are things, and I hate to call them tricks, but there are things where you go, okay, when a conversation seems like it's stalling, I notice they do this, and it does help. I mean, it helps to sort of, it's learning something, I guess. Comedy's probably a lot like that, too, where you fill in the audience, right?
Yeah, oh, for sure.
What does that feel like? I mean, when you really connect with an audience, is it dope? I mean, is it just bam?
If you have, having a really good show, really everything you say, even if it's just a setup, and it's just people are just attached to it and they're listening. That's pretty intense. That's one of the reasons. It's the parallel of bombing and then just absolutely killing. Yeah. Because it's you ask how to recover from bombing. Even after a show, it'll be something that sticks with you. It really will. Yeah. Until the next time you get on stage, you do a little bit better and you kind of forget about it. Or what you can do, because the golden rule of comedy is record every set that you do. Yeah. So even if you bomb, you go back and you listen to the set and you try to figure out what did I do wrong? You don't ever blame the audience. Yeah. Because the audience is there, especially if it's a comedy show, they're there to be entertained. And if you're not entertaining them, you did something wrong.
I get that.
So try to figure that out and you try to make it better for the next time. But when you go up there and you can just, it doesn't even feel like you're trying. Yeah. And they're just killing it. I mean, you're just killing it. Yeah. People are just going crazy. And it's that's the reason that you stick with it, because you know that that's going to happen again, and you can live on that high forever. Yeah. I did a show probably about a month ago, and I'm still super stoked on it. But it was this comedy game show in Lafayette actually called Wait What? It's a drinking game. Okay. So it's you have a list of things behind you that you can't see that the host made. Okay. And if I talk about any of that stuff, they're familiar with...
they have to take a drink in your bit if you talk about it.
So if I talk about this stuff, cool. Them and the audience start drinking. But I don't know what it is. But it's people that are familiar with what I usually talk about, so they'll compile this list. And I got up there and it was just I hit everything on there apparently, and I was just killing it.
Yeah.
Like one of the best shows I've probably ever done, and I'm still stoked on that show.
That's so funny, man. You know, I love that idea. I'm scared to death of drinking games. I don't drink anymore. But many years ago when I did, the only time I played a drinking game was horribly bad for me. And it was like we didn't think this through, you know. It's one of our favorite TV shows, and a bunch of us all got together, and it was every time a character says this, or this. It was Supernatural. I don't know if you know the show on CW. But the character's name's Sam and Dean, and he's always like either saying Sam or Sammy. Well, we put that in the friggin' game. No.
Nope.
I was really ashamed of the way I acted that night. I was like, I'll never play a drinking game again. That was a horrible idea. What was I thinking? You know?
I never got, like, I don't drink anymore either. But even when I did, I never really understood the point of drinking games.
Yeah, to get completely wasted. That was my first and last time. So yeah, I get
exactly.
it. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
And you just get real drunk real fast.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, I never got into drinking games either.
So I want to know, like, well, sorry, I cut you off. No. You were about to.
I was going to say, except for the Wait What drinking game, because that's a comedy thing, and it's actually it involves the crowd and everything, so it's really good.
It does sound like fun. It's a good idea too.
It is.
And if the host knows you, they can like tailor it to make it. You know.
And that's the idea. And also, it's cool because the crowd has to pay attention
exactly
to what's going on. So
that's
it's like
right. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
So they want to. They're looking. They're listening. And so that's one of the reasons it's so successful.
Man, that's something I want to incorporate into this show, and I guess it's because we're still trying to grow. I mean, I don't think the petals have unfolded on this thing yet, and you know, I want to get listener questions for the guests, and I love that on other shows. Yeah. I mean, they're like, and when they go, "Hey, it's a question from Twitter," "Hey, it's a question from our Patreon." But because we're still growing and trying to, probably a lot like when you're trying to grow a comedy scene, it's like, man, I'm like right up to the wire to get it all organized because we're just not robust enough, you know. That'll come, you know, I hope. Sure. Because you're right. People will listen if they think there's a chance that something they've asked will be, you know, answered on the show. Yeah. I like that a lot.
And I'm happy, I know it.
I hate to pause the program, but I want to ask you something. Did you know that you can help me and my team at Parker Brand Creative Services grow the Find the Good News signal? For less than a fancy cup of coffee, you can become an Early Risers Club patron on our Patreon page. What's Patreon? Well, it's a way for creators to fund their projects by pooling support from those really passionate people that believe in what they're doing. Do you believe in what we're doing with Find the Good News? I hope you do. We believe that there's already enough negative news in the world, even right here at home, and that good people doing good works deserve a platform to speak from too. That's why we created Find the Good News, and we believe in that simple mission. Maybe you believe in it too. If you do believe in finding and sharing good news, then head over to our Patreon page right now or check out the link in the show description. For a commitment of $3.33 a month, you can join the Early Risers Club of Find the Good News Patreon supporters and get access to the B-Sides, a patrons-only podcast with the crew behind Find the Good News, Parker Brand Creative Services. Each time we level up, the Patreon rewards will get bigger. If you're tired of old news, bad news, and fake news, help support Find the Good News at patreon.com/findthegoodnews. That's patreon.com/findthegoodnews. Now, back to the episode.
Okay, we're going back in time now. All right. At what point do you realize in your life, I mean, you're 36, you know, and we know what kind of high school life you had. So at what point do you go, people laugh at what, is that how it worked? Where you're like, people are laughing at what I say, or people are telling me I'm funny.
Yeah. And I've always I met my core group of friends. I met them in middle school and been friends with most of them throughout high school, and I've met new friends since then, but they've always been the funniest people ever. So it's always fun just to get with people and like crack jokes and
laugh.
And laugh.
Yeah, I agree.
But as far as just me, like by myself, it was 'cause I played music. I've been playing music since I was 11 years old on stage. And so I'm used to being up there and people looking at me, but I was always just a guitarist. But in a couple of the bands that I was in before, I I would be the only one that would talk to the crowd in between songs.
Okay.
So it's like we'd finish a song and I would just start cracking a joke about somebody in the crowd or something that happened or this and that. And I was started doing it kind of a lot in between songs, and people were laughing and stuff like that. And then but I never really thought of anything of it. And then after shows, it got to the point where people would start, do you do stand up at all? Because like, you're really funny up there.
Interesting.
Things like that. And I never thought about doing it.
How old are you at this time when that's starting to get that
Probably
feedback?
like in my 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't actually start comedy until I was 30.
Okay.
So it was because
But you were getting that kind of response and you're
Yeah.
going, huh, this is interesting.
But that was the thing too. At the same time, as far like as much music as I listened to almost as much, if not more, stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
I was just always like buying new albums from, comedians that I liked and stuff like that. And then as I got, a little bit older and older through my 20s, still playing music, still getting the same reactions from, talking to the crowd in between songs or whatever, I started listening to like Patton Oswalt and Brian Posehn and Todd Barry, these other comedians, and they were saying kind of they had the same thoughts that I was thinking. As far as like Brian Posehn, his big thing is he's the metal comedian, He just actually released a metal album.
Okay.
So he's out there. He's talking about what it's like to be a metalhead growing up, and he's making it funny,
Yeah.
Patton Oswalt's
Pulling
out
from
there.
his
Yeah.
real world stuff. Okay.
And Patton Oswalt's out there, and he's just talking about being kind of an obscure, like nerdy kid, and into indie music and alternative music and stuff like that. And that's when I was like, I think of these same exact things. Let me just get up there and try it.
Yeah.
And it took till I was about 30 to actually build up enough courage to get up there and just start it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much that whole thing. So I was always told, oh, you're funny, get up there. But even just in normal conversations, man, you should put that in your act and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But it's such a different thing talking to people and then cracking a joke about something.
Right. A bit.
And then actually trying to make it into a joke that you can bring to other people. Like joking with your friends is completely different than joking with just the public.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's true. I can relate. I mean, not with comedy, but even with this show, like, and other things where I've learned to, that's what I was going to ask you about your process, because I know for me, I had to start I have all these notebooks and they're for separate things. And I have one that is, just a quick thought, not like deep journaling, but like an observation. If I'm standing in line and something's happening and it's usually not comedy, but it's more about like, why do we do this? Or this behavior was odd. I'll make that observation and I keep a notebook full of those things because they're good for me to go back and go, okay, this stood out to me today. What can if I meditate on this a little longer, what's going to come out of it as a sort of a perspective changing or a life changing thing. Framework, I guess, of whatever that is. I don't even know what the heck I use it for. Maybe this show, some of these conversations, I don't know. So I'm wondering, I hear other comedians say things like that, like I'm always writing my observations down. Is that sort of how your process works? Or
yeah, I think the base idea of any comedian's process is you hear something or you see something and you question it automatically, and then you're like, okay, let me put that down.
Yeah,
I have
that's odd. Write that down.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or same thing as far as going in like in a conversation, and you might say something and you'll hear people kind of start laughing at you. You're like, maybe whatever we're talking about, I need to write that down. But
gotcha.
Most of my stuff is I don't know. I do a lot of self-deprecation stuff.
Okay.
My confidence level.
Does it work?
It's pretty low. Yeah, it works because that's, you can get up there and just poke fun at yourself. It's almost like this is probably what these people are thinking about me anyways. So I get up there and talk about being overweight or hairy or whatever. And that usually works out pretty well. Or I talk about my kids making fun of me, stuff
being
like that.
Being overweight or hairy.
Exactly. But and it works for a certain period of time, but at the same time, I'm still trying to grasp that just like the real world, make a deep connection with somebody kind of jokes, because I haven't quite gotten there yet. I'll see, and I'll make notes of stuff like I'll see on Facebook and I'll try to write like a little joke about an article I read or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Because I've never really gotten a topical humor.
I wondered about that. Okay.
Yeah. So I haven't really written anything that's like current, up to date, like humor. But also part of the reason I haven't is because I'd want to keep these jokes for a while.
You need to get some equity out of them.
Exactly.
Right. So stories are good. Like from the past probably work really well for that.
I actually had somebody tell me the other day after our show, because I've been doing this writing challenge where you write a new joke about a different subject every single day for like the past 30 days. It's on like a group that I'm following on Facebook of comedians. You know? A guy will come out there and like, today write about this.
I see. Okay.
Find time and I'll try to write a whole joke or bit about what he told us to.
Yeah.
And the ones that I've been coming up with lately in the past, like the first few days, probably half of it would just be, just jokes, little jokey jokes. And then the past few days have been stories. And so at the last open mic we did, the set that I did that went terribly was me trying to do some of the new jokey jokes from the stuff I've been writing without much preparation.
I see.
And but after the show, I was talking to one of the guys that has been coming like every week to sign up, Mark, and he was telling me, because he always gets up there and he tells stories.
Stories, yeah.
And he was like, you don't do much stories. Like, and I've been thinking about that ever since he told me that. Like, maybe the next time I go up there, I'm probably going to just try to tell a story and punch it up and see if that actually connects with people.
you can sort of I've heard other comedians talk about that storytelling as being very valuable, because they said, you can begin to you're luring the audience in, and so you're not required to make them laugh. That's the setup.
Yeah.
And so you just got to make sure that the payoff for them is good.
Exactly.
I can see that.
I've done some jokes where it's like been like kind of a short little story. Like, hey, I was here one time, this happened, this happened, this happened. And you try to build like the tension, and then you boom, hit them with a punchline. That's what I like about Patton Oswalt so much, is like he'll have a whole 3 to 5 minute bit that probably a good 2 or 3 minutes of it is just this like very dramatic setup, and then he'll just start hitting you with the funny for like the last couple minutes of it. And it's like, but personally I haven't done that for myself yet. It's still something I'm growing into. That's another thing too about the scene here in Lake Charles not having many open mics and things like that. There's not as much time to practice. I could sit here and write stuff all day. Like I said before, I can write stuff.
But you got to put it in front of a crowd and test it.
If I'm not testing it out in front of people, then I don't know if it's ever going to work.
I've heard a lot of comedians say, I'm fascinated by comedians, honestly. I think there's so much going on with them. One thing that I think is interesting, and I read this in one of George Carlin's books. It wasn't really a comedy book. It was more like a biography. But he was saying how, for him, being a better comedian came from having a broad knowledge base. He said, because the more I can draw from, the more I have tucked away in these. He said, the knowledge and then the time carves these little canyons in your brain, and they get deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's just filled with all this information that you can just make more connections. I thought that was pretty fascinating. I think that's why he was so intelligent too, because he was just studying constantly the world, And
that's this is all right. This is going to be weird, but probably about 3 years ago or something like that. Right before Nate Bargatze got like huge. I don't know if you've heard of him yet, but he has a Netflix special out. And he's doing all kinds. He's about to have another special. He's getting real big. But when he was a little bit smaller as far as like his career, like I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I just hit him up one day. Like, I never talked to the guy before, but I was like, hey, you're a professional, you're getting pretty big. Like, what is some advice you can give for somebody else trying to grow? And he actually wrote me back, and his advice that he gave me was advice that Bill Burr gave him, which was pretty much say yes to everything. And I was like, okay. So like when somebody's like, hey, come out here and do this, even if it's something that you don't normally do, you know what? Go experience that and see if you can come up with something. Because like, just like you're saying, the more you know about, the more knowledge you have of something, there's more opportunity for you to make a joke about it. Yeah. So, and it goes back into the same thing. Like if you watch old Seinfeld episodes, you can see Jerry going with George or whatever let me go experience that because I might be able to write something. Yeah. And he's doing that on his show. It's like he's telling you how to become a comedian in the format of a 30-minute comedy show. So,
do you watch his show, Comedians with Cars Getting Coffee?
I watched a few episodes of the comedians that I liked. Yeah. It's very interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah. When you get some powerhouses together, like some of my favorite episodes, one of my favorite episodes was him and Jerry Lewis.
I don't think I watched that.
Oh man, I mean, Jerry Lewis is this sort of king of comedy and this trendsetter, and it was interesting to watch them sit down and have just the natural comedy that they had between them, the real sharp, subtle jokes, like even the way they would interact with the waiter and waitress.
Yeah,
Jerry Lewis just had this natural ability to make a joke about something off the menu, and it was smart. It was like not just being a jackass. It was like, no, this was a funny, smart thing that he just intuited from the surroundings, and he didn't know where they were going, And I was like, wow, that's what a real master of comedy becomes over time, is just this ability to cut through the regular world and see the laughter tucked into all these, like, sometimes even horrible things,
Yep. That's I know that, and that's one thing I'm still trying to figure out for myself, is just finding the funny in every situation. This writing challenge that I've been doing has been pretty cool, helping me with that. Because one of the things we had to write about, it was like on a Monday, and it was like, hey, what did you do this weekend? And I didn't do anything that weekend. So I was like, well, how am I supposed to write about doing nothing? And then I came up with like a couple jokes that worked. I didn't do anything this weekend, so I just wrote about that. Hey, like, I don't even remember what it was. I think it was something stupid, like I did my favorite thing this weekend, which is canceled all my plans. Right. So because I just wanted to sit around and be by myself. But either way, I don't know. So that was cool, because before, like, I would never think to write about nothing, but he had me think about it. And so I sat there for a few minutes, and I pull out my notepad on my phone, and I'll just start writing. What did I do? I sat around. I watched Law and Order. I did this. I did this. I did this. And then from all those different things, you start branching ideas. Like, I can joke about that. I can joke about that. So
seeing the comedy in everyday things is a gift, actually. I mean, because honestly, not to bring it down a notch, but I mean, the state of the world, you could really look around and go, damn, there's a lot of stuff to really gripe about. And so if you don't have some, I always tell people, I'm laughing through my tears most of the time. And that's honestly what I think a comedian's gift is. I think Theo even said that. He said, when I can give you laughs, that's my blessing. That's my healing for you, you know, is to go, oh, look, there's laughs inside of you and I'm pulling them out. That's a gift to you, because it heals so many things. I think we can forget about that we need some laughter. Because I know whenever I'm devoid of, there are people that I've been around in my life that were just naturally funny and they've made me laugh. And I can tell when I haven't been around those people along, because I start to feel, devoid of laughter. And then the people that you're around all the time, that you think you're making laugh, you start to realize they're not laughing at you anymore. Nothing you're saying is funny, and it starts to go, man, I need to get around somebody funny,
That's why comedy's always going to be one of those things that people are going to look to get out of their funk, I just need laugh. You hear people like at shows all the time, just like, hey, like, I'll get people thanking me, thank you for setting up the show, it's like, hey, I needed that, today was tough, or this week's been crazy, so just laughs, coming here to laugh was what I needed.
So who are your favorite comedians?
Oh man,
you're like, well, where do I start?
I listen to so much comedy, it's ridiculous.
Do you got somebody though that you just go, man, that's just game on for me every time?
Pretty much Patton Oswalt, Todd Barry, Mark Maron.
He's got a new special that came out today, I think. Or
is it today? I know it's supposed to be pretty soon. We actually, me, my wife, and my buddy John went and saw him in Houston a few months back while he was like working on this new special. So I'm excited to see what's coming out, what it's going to be like, the finalized version. But there's tons of like just like comedians that travel all the time that just kind of work the road. That like He's based out of, where is that, Florida now, but he was from like Houston, that scene. This guy named Brian Ziola.
Okay.
And I talk about him all the time. He doesn't he's just one of the funniest people I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And he's just a dude, he'll get on the road and like do, a couple weeks here and there, and he always comes through, and like I'll hook him up with the show or something.
Nice.
Or I'll go see him in Lafayette or whatever. And he's been doing comedy for, I think, like 8 or 9 years now.
Really?
But it's just like, he's one of the funniest people I've ever seen.
He's probably getting funnier.
Yeah, and every time I see him, it's always better and better. And he's just like, when he gets on, he's one of the people, like, when I see him get on the stage, and it's just like, he controls the whole room. He gets everybody into what he's doing. Everybody that I've ever introduced him to, as far as like, hey, you got to come see this show. You got to come see this show.
I'm gonna have to come. I've got to start going to your shows, man.
And there's another dude from the guy I was talking about earlier, Corey Mack from New Orleans. That dude is like, I've never seen a show like what he does.
Really?
Yeah. And these are people that just like, he works the New Orleans scene, Corey does, and he'll travel here and there to do shows every once in a while. But he makes a living doing comedy. But he works all like the New Orleans scene, like real heavy. But he's just like, he incorporates beatboxing into his stuff, and like just the funniest stuff you've ever seen. And he was at he did the last open mic that we had. He closed it down, and he was up there for an hour. Like, he was only, I was like, hey, try to do like 30 minutes or whatever if you're feeling alright.
An hour's a long time, man.
He did an hour, and probably a good 20 minutes of that was like him just like riffing on the spot, like with the crowd that was there. Everybody was so into it.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, and I was just like, people like that is like inspiring to me. Like, I can watch Netflix specials all day. Those are great. Those are funny. Those are well crafted, routines and everything. But watching live comedy in a setting like that from people that are like these road dogs that are just working all the time, that may not have specials and stuff out.
Yeah.
That's usually my favorite stuff to watch.
Yeah.
Because you get to see them like live in action, and you get to see all the filler stuff that might get cut from like a special or something like that. If they have a special, you get to see them actually be real and like veer off from what the actual joke is and start making new jokes.
I've noticed that if you listen to like a podcast with a comedian and then you listen to their special, sometimes you'll hear something that they kind of almost like, oh, they discovered this joke while they were talking on their podcast, like, and you laughed at it then, and it wasn't a bit. And now it's a bit. But it's like refined as the story's a little different. And you go, oh, wow, that's cool that they found that through a conversation.
Yeah, that's, I don't know. It's always cool to see something like that. So, but live comedy, all these guys, road dogs, those are the best comedians out there.
How cool is that for that to be in this area? And I'm really just kind of having that V8 moment here, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been missing out on this, because I do love comedy. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, you think you got to wait for a big comedian to come, out of town, or you're gonna have to travel, get a hotel, all that kind of stuff. But the reality is, I mean, if people go to y'all's show in enough time, some of these people may not be these road dogs anymore, right? I mean, they may be the ones going on the Netflix and having Netflix special.
I have a guy actually coming in April. So April 2nd's Matt Elena Martin, who he's one of the road dogs that I'm talking about, but he has a couple albums out, and he does all the festivals and stuff. Not the next week, but the week after that, whatever that date is, it's going to be Steve Gillespie, and he's been on like Conan and stuff like that before.
That name sounds familiar.
So he has a couple specials out and stuff like that. So he's been doing it for a while, but I got hit up by, it's another guy from New Orleans named Ben Hoffman that is they're going to be doing some shows together. He heard about this show and was like, is there a date that we can work with? And I worked with him, and what it's going to take to get him here. And so we're going to have them here in April. I'll get that date for you.
Yeah, well, while you look that up, I mean, I just want to ask you another question. So your main gig is, I mean, this is a side hustle, right? I mean, this is something you're just passionate about.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a regular 9 to 5 and all that kind of stuff, too.
I do.
I think a lot of people, what am I talking about? I don't know what other people think. But I have to make some kind of an assumption that it's easy for people to forget that people who do things like that, or even like this podcast, you've got a regular 9 to 5, a schedule. You got to still win the bread and butter, to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of love in it, I'm assuming, because sometimes it's the only reason you're doing something.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it was the same way when I was playing music. Oh, that date was April 16th.
April 16th, okay.
So April 16th, Steve Gillespie. So either way, but yeah, even when I was playing music, I did the same thing. I would book bands that were on tour and stuff like that, just for the love of it, just trying to bring something new to the area.
Yeah.
And because in Lake Charles, a great place for art. Like, it's crazy because people don't see it, but like there's just like artists of all kinds everywhere. You know, like some of the most talented musicians are from Lake Charles. We have guys that are naturally funny that are out there doing stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just like convincing the rest of people in this area that we have it here. Like, you don't have, like you said, waiting for something big to come through, you know. People, they really think that, like, what is it, you know, they want it to be worth their time, but it's like, it's just go out and give it a chance, you know.
Yeah.
And it's going to be worth your time. Like, same thing with the comedy, same thing with just music, you know, going to the downtown art walks and stuff like that. Man, we got some crazy talented people
Yeah, it's
in
true.
Lake Charles. It's just, you got to convince the rest of the people that it's worth their time.
Yeah, well, and you know, everybody's got a different reason for sticking around a community. You know, I mean, that's another conversation that kind of seeded this podcast was that, you know, why live here when you can live somewhere where the water's clean and there's not, not Cancer Alley, and I mean, there's all these reasons you can sit and look around and go, man, why would you choose this? But then there's other people who choose that for all kinds of reasons. I mean, it could be the art scene, it could be the music scene. It's where they feel like they're at home. It's where their friends are at. It's love is a weird thing. It works magic sometimes. I mean, and you're willing to balance out a little good and bad sometimes. You know, to have something like that. And so, you know, I think that it could be family, it could be your comedy scene. I mean, once you get into that and you watching that grow, I mean, you get up in a relationship with it. And as you see it grow and change and morph, I mean, God, imagine 20 years from now looking back, you might be the reason there is a scene at all at some point that's actually robust and healthy. And it could be one, just like you said, Lafayette's doing great. I mean, why can't Lake Charles have that too?
Exactly. I still a lot of their ideas to do.
But you could look over there and see what works.
Well, and that's what it is. It's just like, okay, so they do things like this. It's like, what can I do here? And you adapt it to your area. But you know, like you said, you try to figure out what works for them and what can work here. And like that's the idea. And like, you know, as far as just like leaving or whatever, because people would ask me that all the time too when I was in a band, just like, why don't you move somewhere where there's, you know, why don't you move to Austin or something
where there's already a scene.
You know, but it's like, it's cool being that band from a place like here, you know. And the same thing like as with a comedian, you know, it's cool being a comic from here, and then you go somewhere else and they're like, where are you from? Like, how are you doing that out there, you know? So, and that's the idea behind building that scene. Like you said, it's like, it'd be great if in a few years from now, it's like, we actually have, it'd be nice to have a dedicated comedy club, or at least a couple of venues that dedicate a couple nights a week or a month to comedy. So I've actually been very, very grateful that Wade and the Social Club have let me do that, because it's like, I literally asked every facility.
And they were the ones who bid on that.
And they were just like, let's give it a shot.
Yeah, they were going, and it seems like from what I've heard about that place, they're trying to go for something a little different too. Yeah. There's some synergy that can happen there too, because, you know, Crying Eagle being the only real production brewery in town, you know, I mean, that may change, but for now, that's it. You know, there's some synergy that can happen there because they're so in close proximity, you know. Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, Crying Eagle's a cool place too. I would love to have a show at Crying Eagle. Like when we first started, like with the Lake Charles, we have a Lake Charles comedy like Facebook page. We used to have a group of us that would actually get together and try out these different ideas. And when we first, like, we had a show at Crying Eagle for a few months when it was like they were still pretty new. They didn't have a kitchen or any of that kind of stuff. So, and it worked out. It was all right, but it just kind of fizzled away, you know? And I would like to get something like that back at a place like Crying Eagle now, especially because they have a way bigger name for themselves now
than they did,
And they have, like, the food option in comedy also is, like, kind of go hand in hand. Because comedy shows tend to be a little bit earlier than, like, concerts and stuff like that. You know, people want to get off of work, you know, get dressed up or whatever, be somewhere by 7 or 8. They can eat dinner. And they can watch, you know, people tell jokes.
Like the improv is like that. You know, Michelle, I haven't been, but Michelle, my wife, she's been, and she was like, "Yeah, this is great because you can eat and everything."
That's a big thing. And I talked to I need to find a place here that'll let me do, you know, at least a show, like a dinner and a show type thing would be really cool. I just got to find the right place.
It'd be cool to put some kind of outdoor event together too.
That would be cool.
There's
Too.
some cool parks around here.
Yeah.
I think you could probably pull something like that off. And, you know, again, like you're the one who knows, though. I mean, you got your arms kind of wrapped around it, so you know what works and what doesn't.
So there's I don't know. I was about to say something I completely forgot. Man, what was it going to be about?
I bet it was funny, whatever it was.
I doubt it.
I mean, this has been fun, man. I've enjoyed this, honestly. I'm glad to know about it. I'm gonna definitely go. Especially, you nailed it, man. For me, look, I mean, I'm not that I'm over the hill that far, but I mean, I'm 45 years old. I have a family, I work. I got a lot of responsibilities. So going out to like a late night thing is just, man, it just ain't gonna happen. I mean, it's got to be early because I get tired now, man. I mean, because I got to get up early. So it's like, you know, for me, and again, this is just my own personal taste, I'd prefer to go to a comedy show than a concert. Yeah, you know,
it's definitely a more relaxed environment.
For sure.
Comedy shows,
I like to laugh, man.
And like I said, the one that we do at the social club right now, it starts at 8. Mm-hmm. It's usually over by 10. You know, even if it goes that late, sometimes it's a little bit sooner, just depending on the night. But you know, and it's a kind of like you don't know what you're going to see. Yeah, you might see somebody go for the first time and they don't do so well, but then the next guy is going to get up there and just slaughter it. You know, because it's an open mic, so anything goes. Yeah. If you want to get up there and be funny, come on, man.
Well, I mean, you know what's funny about that? That to me, I think maybe that even is part of my fascination with comedy, and not just going to the show, but there's something even about going and watching somebody bomb. Yeah. Even if it's their first time, there's something encouraging about that to me. Mm-hmm. Especially when I'm watching these documentaries, I'm like, look, they just really keep doing this. I go, what does it take? Yeah. Where do they find that at? That's fascinating to me. It really is. Like people who keep trying something, even though anxiety and fear and depression and everything else is like screaming, don't go up there and bomb again. Why do you want to do this? Because some of these personality types, when these documentaries focus on them, you're going, how are they doing this? But they keep going. They get up there, and I'm like, wow, man, they get through all that stuff, and then they bomb. Yeah. And they go back and do it again, and they keep tightening the screws. And I'm like, well, look at you. I mean, that's like, I don't know, it's impressive.
It's a weird, like, perseverance thing, for sure. And it's definitely, because I have a lot of anxieties, too, But like I said, I've been on stage since I was like 11, at least playing music.
So being on stage isn't really a bother to you.
It got weird when I was up there by myself.
Oh yeah,
and everybody's focusing on you, but like, and I don't, So and it's like, but I don't know what I can't speak for other comedians necessarily, but it's one of the most addictive things I've ever done, ever. Like, playing music could be awesome. I could be, at a show in front of 500 people, and they're, like, singing along with us, and they're watching every move that I do, and that's awesome. I can get off stage and feel good about that, but I've never felt as good as, like, killing at a show and then getting off stage, even if it was just for 5 minutes. Yeah. And I get off stage, and I knew that I made everybody in that room laugh. Like, that is the best feeling ever.
Oh, it's a gift, man. It really is.
So even, and like you were saying about bombing, it's like, you can feel the worst you've ever felt after a show from bombing, but like you said, tighten it up, get better. You just got to work through that. Yeah. And that makes the next one better. And then once it actually clicks, something inside you, you're just like, yes, I got to keep doing this.
I think Chris D'Elia, he had said something, and I thought, man, he was being funny, but he was talking about, his stomach would be like soup or something, and he's like, so all he could think about was, okay, left foot forward, now right foot forward, just to get to the microphone. He said, you got to get through that stuff. I mean, that's really literally what it's like. Like, I've got to, just getting to the microphone can be work.
Yeah. I know there's definitely some nights I've been up there where, like, we'll have the show and I have to host the show, so I'm like the first person everybody sees that they expect funny out of. And like I said, sometimes it didn't work. But like the times that it did work would be some of the days where it's like I've had a long day at work, hadn't had a chance to like get any thoughts together. And it's like I got to get off of work and then I got to go to this place. I got to set up the sound and then get the show organized, and then I got to get up there and be funny. And it's just like, sometimes I'll just get up there with an idea. I'll write it down and I'll put it next to me and I'll look at the notebook and I'll just start talking about that, but almost with the like feeling that I had of that day, like whether it be just kind of like dragging or like a little depressed or a little, just sad about it. And I'll just kind of bring that through the jokes that I'm saying. And a lot of times that makes it work or connect even better.
Yeah, because it's probably because it's real. You're connecting to actual human energy. I can imagine getting up and doing a rehearsed bit. This is interesting. This was one of the things I can relate to. This was when I used to give presentations, and I would overthink it when I first started. Because I got to have all this information on my slides, and I got to make sure I click through each thing, and I have to know what's on the slide and say it exactly. And then I read this book called Presentation Zen, and this guy took the complete opposite approach and just stripped it all down. Yeah. And I got to where I really started doing what he did, and it changed everything. He would say, just put a picture on the screen, and that picture is just sort of a summation of the idea that you're trying to get across.
Yeah.
Know your stuff for sure, he said, but then just let that picture stand alone and be a partner to what you're going to say. I would give the same presentation, 3 times with the same set of slide deck.
Yeah.
But if you came to those 3 presentations, you'd probably get a different version because I'm not drawing on like this bulleted out thing. It was more, I could go, oh, or if I had a new experience between the first one and the second one, I could add it in. And it was a story. It was relatable, and my personality or whatever was allowed to be free versus, oh gosh, this anxiety of this structure that I've built. And I can imagine comedy's not that different. It's like if I structure out this joke and then I get up and just read it, then it's not funny.
It doesn't
but
work,
you can just let it go, right? I mean, and it would be...
That's literally that's filling out the audience. Pretty much is what you said. You just fill out what you can feel, connect with the audience.
Yeah.
And that's how you win them over to be on your side.
It's funny. I used to tell people, I still tell people this, we're talking about, I'm going to bring God into this conversation. Like, these people say, I talk to God or God talks to me. And there's a lot of questions that people have about that. And I tried to explain to somebody one time through comedy in that being on stage. I said, imagine that you're up on stage doing a presentation or you're a comedian and you look out of the audience of all these people and you're terrified. And we've all been to presentations or comedy shows like that. Yeah. But then you notice that there's like 1 or 2 people in the audience that's really connecting with that person on stage. And then so that person starts to work to those people. Yeah. And then they're laughing because it's made them more comfortable. I said, that sometimes is what I think these people, they're saying like, God's talking to me. It's like God's going, okay, I'm kind of like trying to talk to everybody, but you know what? Like you 2 are getting it. So here's everything. I'm talking to you right now,
That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
So these people are like, okay, I'm paying attention, just me alone in this audience. And I said, I wonder if that's not what, sometimes when people go, man, they got birds in their brain. What are they talking about? And it's like, well, man, he's like giving them all the attention right now and getting all this information on the joke's on them. It's for them, they get to see it.
Yeah. That's actually pretty interesting to think about.
Yeah. I think of comedians like that. I used to think that way about George Carlin. I used to tell people when I first it's funny because I didn't really get into his comedy through watching him. My dad had a little, my dad had a lot of pocketbooks. He loved to read pocketbooks, action adventure books, but he had some comedy books, and it was Brain Droppings. And I was home visiting one time and in college, and I was in his library looking for some pocketbooks. I'm like, oh, what's this? Brain Droppings. And I read like 3 pages, and I was like, man, cracking up reading this book.
Yeah.
And I realized that the subject matter he was getting into, I was like, this is actually, it's funny, but it's wise.
Yeah.
It was this weird fusion for me. And as the years went by, I come to believe that George Carlin was, there was something else going on with him. Like I was going, something else is happening here. This isn't just comedy. Like this is beyond comedy. It's funny because the joke's on us, but he gets that this is all a joke.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. And there is a lot of intelligence to what he does talk about. And that's
well, the conspiracy theory, that gets back around to what you started with. You can go like he would crack open these structures and systems, and like
you'd almost laugh and cry at the same time. Like, I'm laughing, but this is horrible.
Yeah. That's the thing. I tend to stay away from a lot of that stuff in my humor, mostly because I don't think I'm smart enough to come up with anything clever about it. But maybe if I would have finished school, I would be. No. But
Look at this. We're going all the way home, man. We're going right back to the start. This is great. This is great.
That's what we call a callback.
Callback. Okay.
No, yeah. But I'd stayed like, I don't know, mostly personal stories, like I said, and self-deprecation. But a lot of my favorite comedians are some of those people that can break into like who you are as a person, or into like a political thing or a conspiracy, you know.
Yeah.
And they can break it apart, and it's just like where do you even come up with these ideas?
Yeah.
Mark Maron can do a lot of stuff like that too. Like if you listen to his specials and stuff like that, he can get real deep.
On his podcast too, like his whole intro before he actually visits with his guests, you know, he does his little. It's funny because I go, man, it's not scripted. He's just talking to me. That's what I feel like sometimes. And there's something he said that I still bring up, like on his podcast. He was talking about going somewhere and like being bothered by this certain group of people and how come they were enjoying this and he wasn't. And he came and then he just said, he goes, I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. Why can't I just let people have their fun? And there was something about that, man, that like vibrated right into me. I was like, oh God, the way it was so real that he said it, what he was talking about. And that one little line like framed him for me, because I went, dude, I get that.
Yeah.
I get what you just said 100%, because it was so human and real, you know? And that really endeared me to his show, because I just think he's a real guy. I mean, he'll just tell it like it is and what's going on with him, you know?
That's the thing. Like watching his specials, or like when we saw him live, it was like, it just feels like a one-sided conversation. Like he's talking to you, and like you're involved in the conversation, but he's the only one talking.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like everything that he's saying, you're like,
Isn't that interesting? That is a gift, because you're right. He makes you feel like, that's probably why his podcast is so successful and long running. He has that gift. He was talking about stopping at, it's funny what you'll latch onto in a story, but he was talking about stopping at a Whataburger because he was hungry. And what was interesting to me is the way he described that whole experience. He wasn't trying to make a joke. Yeah. He was really complaining about something, his health or something like that. But what I thought was interesting was the lack of recognition. And I told my wife, I said, so here's Mark Maron telling you he's driving across, you know, country or whatever, and he gets hungry, stops at a Whataburger. And in my mind, I'm trying to imagine me stopping at a Whataburger and seeing Mark Maron in line in front of me and going, that looks like Mark Maron. There's something just so human about him in general. Like he's just kind of out here with us is what it feels like, you know?
Yeah. Yep. That's a pretty cool thing. But that's the thing about like the difference between music and comedy. Like in music, your favorite bands, your favorite musicians almost feel untouchable.
Yeah,
sometimes.
they're set apart.
They are. In comedy, like you said, you can see these people on a personal level. For one thing, because they talk about a lot of personal things, but even literally seeing them out or meeting them, and it's not like the same thing.
It's weird. I think that's probably why Theo Vaughn. I like his show, because I mean, man, come on. I mean, he'll talk about pissing the bed as a kid, and you think he's joking around, cracking a joke, and then you're laughing, and then you realize, oh no, he's actually talking about like he peed the bed a lot, you know, and then it comes up all the time, and it's like it becomes funny, and you realize he's making a little bit of a joke about it, but it's a real thing. Like he's actually sharing, like, this is a struggle for me, and you're going, oh damn, man, like, you know, it's endearing. He's human. He's out here with us. He had the same problems, same fears, but he can somehow laugh at life. Yeah. And make you laugh too. I don't know. Again, I think that's a gift, because we need it, man. I mean, I need it, because like I said, when I don't have it, I can feel it. Yeah. You know, I'll be carrying all this stuff, and there's something about comedy that just, you know, just draws that stuff out of you, you know, and you're like, oh, I feel so much lighter now, you know, from having laughed and cried and all that stuff.
Yeah, especially if somebody hits on something that is bothering you.
Oh, yeah.
That day. Or something just in the world that is kind of on everyone's mind, like the coronavirus or, you know, and things, as people start cracking jokes about things like that, and it kind of eases you up, just like, oh, you know, it is nothing to really take that serious.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's one of the cool things about comedy. I don't have any jokes about the coronavirus, but
Actually, I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to wrap this up here. I know you probably got somewhere to be, but is there anything that's just taboo that you just go, that's off limits, or that's specific to our area? Or do you just kind of go, hey, it's all gloves?
It's usually anything goes. The only thing I'll tell people, like nothing racist and nothing like rapey.
Yeah.
Like don't, and
Right.
And here's the thing, I actually had a conversation with somebody the other day about that at the show. It's like you can bring those points up, but if you can't do it in the right way, then don't talk about
It's treacherous territory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because there's just some things that what's the point of even bringing up, race or, the creepy sexual stuff, like,
oh yeah.
so, and I'm not saying you can't talk about your personal sexual experiences, or things like that. Yeah, that's fine. Make it funny.
But don't make a joke of an atrocity. Oh,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's some
That's-
social justice involved, and I get that.
Those are the only things I tell people not to talk about. That and like don't get too heavy on like religion, I guess. Like if you're, but still like I said, if you can make it funny, make it funny.
Well, sure. I mean, what I think, I'm highly interested in religion. I'm an enthusiast, I would say, probably. And I love religion jokes. I think they're great that we can laugh at. I mean, some of the things that we do and believe. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, the other day, I realized I might have offended somebody. We were in here and, we're trying to be careful with the coronavirus. I mean, not fear mongering, but like we're just keeping our hands clean. It's a simple thing. But I let them know, the pump his hands, because we'd shook hands. I said, look, I don't know what I've touched, here's your sanitizer, get a pump or two in there, wipe it around. And he said, at church the other day, they told us we're not going to be doing communion anymore, and I just don't know how that's going to affect people. And I said, well, the viruses don't care what we believe. And that was just what I said, but I could tell, like, I offended. It wasn't said, but like it was like the air got sucked out of the room. I wasn't trying to be funny. I just mumbled out this thing that I thought, I was like, well, virus doesn't care.
And
I think I offended, and so,
which is crazy though, because it's true. And that is actually really funny. But like you can make that into a joke, but it's just, that's like why a virus has no thought process.
Yeah.
I
always have found that interesting that we will attach God's mercy or God's vengeance to things that just happen. Mm-hmm. I'm very interested in that. Like if a hurricane moves, a different direction, then the people who were praying for it to move will attribute it to the prayers. But if it decimates an area, they'll attribute it to like there's too many homosexuals living there, and I'm like, what the heck are we doing? It's like we can just play this game of assignment, It's kind of funny. Look, here I am making comedy on religion. You just said not to do that.
Well, no, really. And I made my mom real mad one time during Hurricane Rita because I ended up going with my family up to Shreveport. We let it pass, and then we were coming back down, like almost like clockwork. Every time she would, because once you started getting closer to here, like a little bit north of here, you would start seeing like these houses that were just crushed, demolished, and then one would be standing up perfect. Every time you'd see one of those perfect houses, my mom would make the comment just like, "Oh, they must have been praying hard." And then nothing, another house that was perfect. Oh, they must have been praying really hard. And I was like, what do you think those other people were doing whose houses, who don't have a place to live now? Do you think that, what were they doing? And she was just like, I don't know, Chase, shut up.
I know, man. Like I have like, give me in that place. And I'm like, come on now. Like there's like this trend in that where people will say, well, the reason these good things happened, or a sick child, that's a difficult thing, and here I'm gonna bring it down, man. I'm about to bring it really hard, bring it down. But like, you a sick child, and everybody's praying for that sick child, and I would too. Honestly, I will too. But that child realistically may not make it. Yeah. Right. Do we assign then that God didn't care?
Yeah.
Because I always equate it to like these kids in Syria that I watch on Twitter, which just, God, I mean, that's like I want to cry, Yeah. And I'm like looking at this horror show, this human horror show, and I'm going, I'm watching those people pray too.
Yeah.
while Russian helicopters drop barrel bombs on their helms, and they're carrying their babies out, covered in blood. And I'm like, those people are praying too. So do I then assign that they you see where I'm at? I go, this just doesn't make sense. We do not need to keep doing this. Yeah. And I almost think it's one of the worst things humans can do is to attribute divinity to natural things. All coronavirus is a punishment. Yeah. Coronavirus is like virus.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just that. And it's not, we don't need to overthink this. We can we make it worse by overthinking it, actually. I mean, assigning these things to it. Guilt and shame and deservance and all this stuff, man. Don't get me started, dude. See, I get off on that tangent and I'm like, what?
Shouldn't have said religion.
Yeah, there you go. That's my problem right there.
And I'm happy, I know it.
This episode's Fishing for Goodies Fishbowl sponsor is Brimstone Museum and Henning Cultural Center in Sulphur, Louisiana. I don't know what you look for when you travel, but one of the things I look for when I'm putting together my itinerary is a unique museum or gallery in the city I'm traveling to. I do this almost every time I go to a new city, but if I'm being honest, I'm guilty of not always doing that very thing right here at home in Sulphur, Louisiana. That's really a shame because we have one of the most interesting, historically relevant, and culturally rich corners in any city in the country about 2 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. I'm talking about the Brimstone Museum and Henning Cultural Center. Have you ever really thought about why our city is named Sulphur? They've got a permanent exhibit on the history of the sulfur industry that answers that simple question and more. You really get a full scope of just how important the sulfur mining industry was to the development of Southwest Louisiana and the impact it had on the rest of the world. Yes, the rest of the world. On the same property, right next door to the museum, is the Henning Cultural Center, presenting some of the most interesting, modern, and culturally relevant local art shows I've ever seen. My dear friend Tom Trahan and the Brimstone Historical Society have really worked hard to give us this treasure, and it's a multifaceted jewel that I plan to take advantage of more often. You don't have to wonder what their hours are, or how to get there, or what shows are coming up. Just go to brimstonemuseum.org like I did, and subscribe to their mailing list right there on the homepage. That's brimstonemuseum.org. Tom will make sure you start getting the announcements for each and every new show at the gallery. But you don't have to wait for the mail to arrive to enjoy this historical local treasure. You don't have to be guilty, like me, of overlooking a local wonder that conveniently sits next to the Grove, one of the most beautiful walking parks in Southwest Louisiana. Drop in and say hi to Tom for me. Tour the museum and center, and make sure to tell Tom that you heard about Brimstone Museum on Find the Good News. Now, let's take that dive in the fishbowl. All right, so this has been fun, even though I brought religion into it, just like you said, man. You were right. You're right. It's where it goes. Don't bring that up if you're a comedian in Southwest Louisiana. But this part of the show... It's called Fishing for Goodies. Did you listen to like the whole?
I haven't made it to the end of it.
They're long, aren't they?
So, I'm busy.
Long. Yeah, I hear you. All right, so this part of the show is where I step out and the fishbowl steps in. You see my cool fishbowl?
I see that. This whole place is cool, actually.
Oh, well, cool, man. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. I like it too. It's a bit of a stacky mishmash of stuff. But the fishbowl has, speaking of mishmashes of stuff, the fishbowl has over 400 questions and growing.
Nice.
Some of them I've put in there. Some listeners have put in there over the last year, and then some are like game cards from conversation starter games, just all mixed in there. So you get to draw 3, and then read them, and then we'll talk about them.
Okay. How clean are these?
And then those have not been sanitized, right. But you're going to need to sanitize. There's been a lot of hands in that bowl.
I start now.
Go ahead.
There's one. Do I do them all 3?
Yeah, however you want, man. No rules.
2 and 3.
All
so
right.
Let's go. This first one. Games you love to play as a kid. Hang on a second.
Yeah. There you go.
There we go.
He's sanitizing, guys.
That's weird. I'd spent most of my life playing music from the time I was like 10 until even now. So I didn't really play a whole lot of like games.
Been playing games like Red
Like,
Rover, Ring Around the Rosie.
I'm sure I did some of that.
Hopscotch.
Nothing really sticks out in my mind.
Were you no video games?
I did play a lot of Contra. And,
dude, Nintendo.
Well,
there we go.
obviously, you can see that right there.
Oh yeah, he's got video game tattoos all over his arm. That's nice.
So I did do a lot of that. A lot of Mega Man, Bomberman, stuff like
Okay.
that for regular Nintendo. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess you can say that. But once I started playing music, I didn't care about anything else.
You just dropped that, huh?
Boom! I'm just gonna do this from now on.
And how old
So,
were you? You said 11?
11, yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah, me and my brother played as well. So that's what we did. We'd get home from school and we'd go straight into the shed we had out in the
Did
back.
y'all teach yourselves how to play? Or
Pretty
did you
much.
like,
Our dad
wow,
played,
dude.
our dad played guitar, and so we would sit there and he taught me how to play a little bit of stuff. I don't know how my brother learned how to play drums. I'm not gonna lie. He just started playing drums,
Had a natural ability.
and it was like really freaking
Wow,
good.
man.
Yeah, like one of the best drummers. And like I said, we were 11 and 12 years old, and he's just back there. We'd play like Metallica and all kinds
Dude,
of stuff.
there's something about a good drummer, man.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine in high school, his younger brother, and that's still what he does. He's went on to do all kinds of like Broadway plays and stuff. I mean, he's an incredible drummer. But I remember going to their house in high school and hearing him, and we went and just watched him, and I was like, what the heck? It's kind of like how I said, like pulling the laughs that are stored up in you out of you. I feel like that with a good drummer. I'm like, you just got the beats in you. Like it's just in you to have rhythm, and you can just naturally pour out the beats.
My brother did that, and like I said, he just like I remember we went to a friend's house one day when we were probably about 10 or 11, and this dude's like dad played drums or something like that. And he had like the hi-hat and the snare.
Yeah.
And we were listening to like Tim McGraw or something goofy like that. And my brother just like picked up the sticks and like played the beat.
He had it.
And I was like, how do you know how to do that?
Wow, dude.
So once I started learning how to play guitar, we just would hold ourselves up like in the shed out back, and we pretty much learned how to play music from each other, you know, after we learned the basics. And we would listen to stuff, and we would learn something. We were playing, like I said, we were playing like Metallica and like Danzig and Nirvana and just crazy stuff like that 11-year-olds probably shouldn't be playing. But
Awesome, man.
it was
That's cool though.
But that's what I spent most of my childhood doing.
I love that answer. So no games. I went right to business.
Pretty much. Well, like, you know, a few games before we learned the business. But yeah, mostly that.
Good question.
Yeah, that was. What makes you lose sleep?
Ooh,
My daughter.
your daughter.
Mostly because she wakes me up every freaking night in the middle of the
She
night.
literally makes you lose
Yes.
sleep. How old is she?
She's 5.
Okay, so she's like, Daddy.
Dude, she'll wake me up just to tell me that she's still sleepy. And
That's
I'm
so
like,
funny.
what is your problem?
My son's like that. He knows when you've. My wife and I were talking about this, and it's just like, man, we can't sleep in the same bed because he's like, he needs a buddy. He still needs a bed buddy, and I love him, and I do enjoy that time. But you know, you just go at some point. I wonder when it's going to change. Like,
But she almost like clockwork. Like every night, I'll fall asleep, and a couple hours later, here she comes, and she'll just want to like lay with me or whatever. That's fine, but man, like I like sleeping too. But so that's what literally makes me lose sleep.
Yeah.
Is that as far as just like anything that stays on my mind, I don't really.
You don't have that kind of
I
stuff.
can go to
huh?
sleep pretty easy. My wife can contest to that. Because she'll gripe about me. I'll lay down and I'm just snoring.
It's funny. I used to
right off
not
the
be
bat.
like that, but I'm like that now. My wife would say the same thing. I guess I used to not snore, but now I guess I do. And she'll like wake me up and say, "Please roll over on your side." I'm like, God, I hate that I snore. I went on this men's retreat, man, and you know I wasn't one of the youngest guys there, but I was younger, and I didn't snore at that time. And everybody kept telling me, "Oh, bring earplugs, bring earplugs." And I was like, come on. But a lot of those guys were older.
Yeah.
Dude, they ain't no lie. 20 guys, 30 guys, I don't remember. It was it was like a bunk bed situation. Everybody was in the same room. Mm-hmm. It was horrible, man. And then it was the first time in my life, and this wasn't too long ago. It was the first time in my life where I really understood where people got that term sawing logs. Sounded like, dude, it was nuts. And it was a bunch. I mean, it wasn't like one guy. It was this cascade. And it was almost like it got worse as the night went on. You're 3 a.m. It's like,
And I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to get any sleep.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make it.
I'm pretty sure I'm that one of those guys that keeps everyone awake.
Some deep buzzing going on, man.
Because I'll even wake myself up snoring sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Like if I'm like,
that happens to me.
If I lay on my back and I'm just like getting into it, I wake up like, what? That was me. Okay.
What? I like that. What? What was that? Oh, that was me.
Yeah. So,
Scare yourself with your own snore.
So,
I can relate. I mean, I guess to some degree. I hate that I snore now, though.
yeah, I don't know. I've been doing it for so long. I'm used to it. Well, other people need to be. I guess my wife's used to it. I should say that. I've been doing it for so long. She got used to it.
I almost wish my wife snored that way. I didn't. So it was both of us snore,
Yeah. That we could just keep the whole house awake.
Well, I'm deaf in my left ear, so I can roll over and put my right side of my face on a pillow. Now I'm good, man.
Yeah.
I can't hear anything.
That's interesting.
So
Actually, I have hard of hearing out of my right ear. Because interestingly enough, when I was in high school, I went and saw this Christian metal band.
who was it?
They were called Bride.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they were kind of big. And then like, I went with a buddy of mine in his like church group.
Yeah.
And it was in this tiny little place in Houston, and there was like 15 people there, but they had like I said, like when I say tiny place, it was like the size of this room, and they were in this corner, and they were so freaking loud, and they were just like, and I think the one song that they had that was big was called like we're not going to hell, no, we won't go, and they were just like cranking it out like Guns N' Roses style type stuff. And by the time we left the show, I was like, I can't hear out of this ear ever.
Then it still is messed up. God, dude, Jesus stole my hearing.
Exactly.
That's the name of your memoir.
Exactly.
Holy cow.
So yeah, that was. So yeah, I like when I'm laying like this, I can't really hear that well. It's all muffled.
Wow.
Out of this ear, and I'm sure I didn't help it either. Just playing music myself, and hardly ever wore earplugs.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But that was the one time I can remember like this hurts, and
it never went away.
And
God, dude, just messed your earring. Jesus did
that to me.
God.
So, all right, let's see what this one says. If you weren't concerned with what other people thought, what would you like to be doing with your life? I really don't care what other people think anyways.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good. That's a gift there, man.
It's probably, but I mean, the only thing that I'm just stand-up comedy. If I could dedicate most of my time to stand-up, like, that's the only thing I would be doing right now.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that you have to not care what other people think about, to get up there and just talk about stuff.
Yeah.
You
can tell when somebody is not comfortable.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's not just stand-up. I mean, it can be anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure people have bad things to say about me, but whatever.
Just let it go.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like whatever.
dude.
So that's I guess it could be a blessing and a curse, because sometimes you should take that criticism that people have, because I might be doing something that somebody doesn't like at all, and I'm just like, whatever.
I listened to something this morning kind of in that category, and I thought it was fascinating. And the fact that you're talking about it, and I guess it's not that fascinating, I don't know, but he was just talking about how if you wake up in the morning and then you get up and you do the exact same things that you did the day before. Like if you drive to work the same path, you're on a routine, and you've been doing it for a long time. He said, you're living in the person you were yesterday. You've succumbed to the version of you from the day before. He said, so this guy's advocating like changing those things, because if you want to do new things, you have to change some of those external stimulators that are keeping you in yesterday. Okay. I was like, I never really, I've thought of bad habits.
Yeah.
Right. Like, well, I need these destructive habits. I'm taking too many pills, whatever it is, or painkillers or whatever. I mean, I'm not addicted to painkillers. I'm just using that as an example. Yeah. But I was like, okay, yeah, I've thought of that before, maybe quit biting your nails or something. I don't know, maybe a little more tame.
Yeah.
But I didn't think of like the regular things. It's like, well, I get up every morning at 4, I make breakfast, I make the coffee, I brush my... That stuff seems pretty innocuous.
Yeah.
But it's actually a skin that's keeping you in yesterday's version of you. Like, that's interesting to think about.
It's crazy, because actually that'll be stuff that starts kind of bothering me. Like lately, if one thing's been on my mind a lot, it's that I do, like, I go to work, the same job every day, and like I get up at the same time, get the kids ready, go to work, get home, do this, and then I only have like a short period of time to actually be myself.
Yeah, I get that too.
And so like that, but it's hard to break from that. But I am aware of it,
Yeah.
But because you're like, if I break from that, like, it can mess up this whole chain of events, because it's not just me I'm thinking about my wife and my kids and my job and everything.
Right.
So it's like, it could be pretty stressful to think about that, because there is part of me that wants to not have that routine,
Yeah.
Like I said, if I could be doing anything, it would be comedy. If I could make as much money as I make at my day job telling jokes every day, that's what I would be doing. And that, that would be a different, I don't even know if it would be the same routine, because it's just something different every time you're up there. But right now, as far as work goes, it is. I'm like 6 o'clock in the morning doing this. By the time it's this time, I'm out the door. By the time it's this time, I'm at work. By the time, and then at work, it's the same thing. Go to lunch at this time, give this person lunch at this time, do this at this time.
Yeah, man. It's that stuff like that. And another guest and I were talking about this. That stuff like that is like river water smoothing out a stone. I mean, because it's so consistent and it's so the same, and it's taking all your identifiers off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All your textures, all your colors. Before long, you're just this bleached rock that's just smooth like all the other rocks. And you got to pull it out of the water and and put it somewhere else and carve something into it or something, because it's like, if not, we're all just exactly the same, just getting worn down by this systemic stuff that's here we go, watching me dive off into that now. But I get what you're saying. I mean, and with comedy, you got to have some room for that stuff to just sort of germinate and like be a little petri dish and let some stuff grow in there.
Well, that falls back into the category of like, just say yes to everything. Like, if I don't have, if I'm doing the same thing every day, where's the opportunity to learn something different or to grow?
Yeah.
To where I can even come up with new material from, experiences. If I'm experiencing the same exact thing for about 12 hours in a day, and I have 2 to 3 hours to myself, and usually those 2 to 3 hours is watching Chopped and eating dinner and then going to bed.
Right.
Like, I can only write so many jokes about the Food Network,
No, I get exactly what you mean. I feel like that too. And honestly, this show has been that blessing, because I get to meet people like you and other people, which is a doorway in. But even this can become that one of those things, if I'm not careful. Like, for instance, I'll tell you short, and then we can get out of this thing, but I go for a walk every morning before work, and I like to go to the local parks. But, I only have so much time.
Yeah.
But it's my time, right? But I like to read as well. And so what's happened is I go, well, this is my time. And I like to read, and I like to write, and I love to listen to music. I like to meditate. I like to pray. I do all these things I like. And I get this almost frustrated feeling that starts to arise. And it's like, I've only got this time. Which one of these things do I want to do? How can I fit them all together? And it's like all this going together. And so this morning, I realized, I was like, I'm walking and listening to an audio book, and it's actually frustrating me, because I feel like it's becoming routine. And even though it's my time, I'm almost mad that I can't just sink into it as long as I want to. Yeah. It's silly. So today I just like, forget this. I'm doing something completely different. So I went to the park and I just sat in front of the water fountain, and I said a mantra for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And like just zonked out into that space. And I felt myself just like totally limp out. All that poison thinking of frustration just like melted away into the sound of the water, into the mantra. And I was like, okay. I broke this freaking watch I'm stuck in. Even though it's a healthy, these things would, most people are like, oh, good, you're reading and walking.
Yeah, but it still
those
became
things
that routine,
too can become routine and like catch you.
I've done the same exact thing with my days off of work, where it's even on my days off, it's like I would schedule what I'm doing for that day. And it's like, so even on my days off, I'll still feel like I'm in the same rut sometimes.
Yeah, I totally get that, man. It's
crazy.
wild, isn't it?
It's
funny how, what they call it, the noonday devil, I think is what some people call that. It's like those things that seem
Yeah, they almost like catch you again. It's like, oh, well, okay, you broke this system, but hang on, I'll take this thing you love and turn that into a system too. Now you're stuck in this thing. And it's like, even comedy, I bet you can be like that, like organizing and trying to get all the people. And before long, you're like, man, I'm stuck in this thing. And then the joy starts to leak out.
Yeah.
You feel, it's on, and then you drive off and it's all over the ground. It's like, oh man, I need an oil change already. Come on. All right, man, I got one last question for you.
Okay.
See that yellow mug right there?
Yes.
That belongs to you now.
Oh, I love a new coffee mug.
There's a question on the back.
All right. Here?
Yep.
Did anything good happen today?
Yeah.
So far, this is what I've done today.
Is
but
it good?
it's been great, actually.
Good.
Because it goes back into the breaking the routine conversation we were just having.
Yeah.
I told my wife, even like right before I came here too, that I was nervous just simply because of the fact, and this is true, it's like I don't like meeting new people. And I don't like having conversations with people I don't know.
Right. And you had both of those things.
Here I am. So
yeah,
this has been a great thing for me. It's just as far as breaking that trend of doing the same thing all the time and meeting new people.
Well, that's good.
Not hating it.
That's good. Oh, man, I hear you. I have social. I probably should say I had social anxiety, or I think I've re-identified it as something else. And so I get it, man. I would probably have been terrified back years ago to come and sit down with somebody I didn't know.
Yeah.
But I think that probably, like you with comedy, having those things helps you learn how to treat people better, because you go, how can I make the other person more comfortable?
Yeah.
Because I know they potentially could be going through that, because I've went through it. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that, man. Yeah. That's a positive thing.
It is. It's very good for me. I'm
so
glad.
What's the best way for people to follow you or find this information about the comedy scene in Lake Charles?
Right now, you can just follow my Facebook page. It's just my normal, everyday.
Your personal page?
Personal page, Chase Bonin. We also have Lake Charles Comedy on Facebook.
Okay.
I have a Twitter that nobody pays attention to. And so you can try to find, I don't even know what my handle is. It's how much I pay attention to it as much as
in this market here,
does.
man, it's just not, it hasn't got the roots like it.
And I do, and I'm on Instagram as well, but.
Do you use that?
Barely.
Yeah. The main thing is Facebook been good for you?
Facebook is good. I get a lot of promotion on there. And
what about the place too? They have their own page? Do they promote your events as well?
Social Club, they'll promote every event that they have there. They're really good at promoting too. That was another cool thing about getting it with them, is they actually promote as well as me. So it's not everything just relying on my shoulders.
Okay.
But yeah, so you can follow the Social Club. They got like 2 or 3 different pages on Instagram and on Facebook.
Okay.
And then my personal page or Lake Charles Comedy would be the best ways.
All right.
To find everything.
So the best thing is then they go follow you personally on Facebook. They also follow the Lake Charles Comedy Scene on Facebook. And then the Social Club on Facebook. You're going to find the information. But primarily, you're every other Thursday, 8 o'clock to 10?
8 o'clock, usually about 10. Every show is free to the public. That's great. So you don't ever have to worry about having to pay to get in to watch anybody. And you're going to see a solid performer by the end of the night. You'll watch an open mic. You'll watch people trying new stuff. But then it's always going to be closed out by somebody that's a professional, or at least a semi-professional.
All right. Chase Bonin, Lake Charles Comedy, Lake Charles Comedian. Thanks.
You're welcome.
And I love you just as well.
Thanks for listening to my conversation with Chase Bonin. If you found something good in this conversation, consider helping me keep the signal strong by supporting Good News at patreon.com/findthegoodnews. I thank you for pressing play, for listening, and for sharing good news.